Hello everyone, welcome to this section. In this section, we will learn the use of Panoramic Container. In this section, we mainly include the following 4 knowledge points, namely, the overview of Panoramic Container's feature, the basic use of Panoramic Container, and the special effect of Panoramic Container. Finally, we will cooperate with our Panoramic Container to complete a practical operation practice. So first of all, we come to the first point, Panoramic Container Feature Overview. Panoramic Container Feature Overview, very simple, is to reflect a panoramic effect, can let our experience in the panoramic container to build a panoramic scene for a switching perspective reading. It is through our panoramic camera to take a panoramic image, and then use the computer's image physics technology is used to analyze our panoramic image and build a panoramic scene, so that users can control the browsing direction, left or right, up or down, far or near to watch the object or scene, as if they were immersive. Generally, compared with our traditional 3D modeling, the panoramic container is smaller and simpler, the amount of data is small, the system consumption is lower, and has very full advantages. Realism. Here I'd like to show you an effect made by our panoramic container. This is an effect that we have made panoramic container. You may have seen it somewhere. Is this exactly the same as the scene we see when we go to VR and AR to see the house? Yes, this is actually an effect achieved by our panoramic container. Click the forward, zoom in and zoom out of a perspective here, and then we can achieve an effect that we can control our panoramic scene. Such an effect can also be seen on our mobile phone. Then there is a scene called Point My Mother here. We can click it, and you can see it. Then we can switch to the next scene. Then we can have a preview in the next scene. Let's click such a back symbol on the left, and we can click it again to return to the previous scene. In fact, what is the principle? Do you also see a cursor under the panoramic house viewing scene, and then when you click the cursor, it will switch to a new scene? In fact, this is an effect of switching between multiple panoramic scenes. Just for demonstration, I uploaded a material picture here, which is very small, so I feel that this picture has a little arc. In actual production, we master the technology to upload panoramic pictures with better quality, so as to achieve a more realistic demonstration effect. After understanding what our panoramic container is, let's take a look at its basic usage. The basic usage of panoramic container is very simple. First, we add a panoramic container, and then we add a widget such as our panoramic scene under the panoramic container, and then we upload a picture of it in the panoramic scene, and then we can pool resources. Please note that for a picture resource we upload, its picture has several requirements. First, the size of a picture must be less than 100 megabytes, and then the width-height size ratio of the picture must be 2:1. Why 2:1? That's because our panoramic camera takes a panoramic picture of 2:1, and its width must be less than 15,000 pixels. Then the third point is that one of its formats must be our JPG format. Of course, the first 2 points can be relaxed. Although we don't allow you to upload in the editor, you really need to use a panoramic image with such a high resolution. You can contact our customer service for uploading. Only in our editor, in order to ensure the performance of all students using the editor, we help you remove about 100 megabytes and about 15 megabytes by default, a group picture of 000 pixels, followed by the special effect of our group container, the special effect of the panoramic container, including the effect of rotating and expanding the panoramic container when we open an asteroid, and the shaking or rotation of our mobile phone when we open the gyroscope control. When we hold the mobile phone still, we can use the gyroscope to control a viewing angle, and finally there is an effect of automatic rotation, which can realize the effect of scene spin when the user stops operation. In this case, we will open our editor and start to make a panoramic container application. Okay, let's open our editor. Here's the application name. We will fill in a panoramic container, and then click the yellow Create button. In this way, we will complete the creation of a relative positioning application, and then we will select the front end to develop good habit. We directly add a page widget under the front end, and then we make a panoramic effect in the page. We just saw that we need to add our panoramic scene using our panoramic container, so we first need to add such an effect as our panoramic container, that is, where is it? Let's look for it together. First, we select our page, and then we can see it under our page canvas. Here is a widget, our panorama container. We can click it to add our panorama container to one of our pages. Then we select our panorama container, and we can find that our panorama container contains two things. One is called our panoramic scene, and the other is our panoramic video. We won't show you here, so let's add the first one and teach you how to make the simplest panoramic scene. If the original image is very large, it may take a long time to process. In order to facilitate the demonstration, our pictures are very small for you. Here we click our upload button, and then there will be a prompt here. Again, you will be prompted that the aspect ratio is 2:1, and the maximum width is 15. The maximum size of a 000 pixel file is 100 megabytes, and the larger the image, the longer the processing time it takes. Then, if it exceeds the image limit, we can contact our customer service for manual processing. Then we click OK here. Then we have prepared two panoramic images for you in advance. Let's upload the first panoramic image first. Click 1 to open. You can also see that because our material is very small, it completes an effect of a cut in an instant. In this way, we can create a map of a panoramic scene, and we have finished it. Then we can take a look at some of its commonly used property. The first point is the default perspective scaling. Here, the perspective scaling is a number that you can see in the figure. The larger the value is, the smaller the whole picture will be, and the more effective elements you can see in the unit. For example, the default is 92, it is set to 100. Let's see if the whole picture has a backward effect, and then it has a narrowing effect, which allows you to see more elements in one line of sight of the unit. Therefore, the perspective here can be automatically scaled according to your situation. And then there is a default perspective, the minimum and maximum value of scaling large value. What do these minimum and maximum values mean? Here we preview to give you a simple explanation. You can see that there are a plus sign and a minus sign here. The plus sign is actually narrowing your perspective, and the minus sign is enlarging your perspective. The maximum and minimum values here are actually filled in here. If you don't want everyone to see too many additional elements, or if you don't want one of its sight distances to be very large or very small, you can adjust these two parameters. Then the next point is the distortion degree of our language. Generally speaking, this value defaults to 0. Here, you can slightly increase it. For example, we can add a 0.1. Here, you can have a 0.5. You can find that the whole picture has a certain bending effect. At most, it is a control of the degree of distortion. Therefore, generally speaking, I think it is okay to default to 0. Then there is a correlation value between the default perspective and the language perspective, which is also adjusted by yourself. If you upload such a panorama and find that your side is a beam, these may not be straight, but curved, then you may use these two parameters to make a slight adjustment. Then, what does it mean by the maximum of the horizontal angle of view, the maximum of our horizontal angle of view, and the minimum and maximum of our vertical angle of view? Here we will talk together. Our default perspective is 0 and 0. Let's preview and see an effect. When we enter such a panoramic container, we can see that at present, we are only such a panoramic container because the horizontal and vertical viewing angles set by default are 0. Then our mouse, that is, our fingers, can be controlled. For example, we can press and hold this button when we look up, down, left and right. What kind of screen is moving, and what do we look up and down to decide? Yes, it's our vertical perspective. Our horizontal perspective is a range of perspectives that look to the left and often to the right. Therefore, if we default 180 degrees to positive 180 degrees, we can just see a whole circle. If we go up 90 degrees, we can just see our upward limit, and our downward position, you can just see a place on the floor. So if you have other requirements for user gesture control, you can set the size of our horizontal view and our vertical view. Finally, there are a series of view restrictions on our side. These view restrictions are some high-end usage. Therefore, if you have other expectations for a panoramic container, you can use one of our view restrictions. By default, we don't impose any restrictions on you. Then, we'll put them in our panoramic container. And let's add a series of effects. For example, when we select such a table lamp, we want a prompt to tell you that it is a table lamp, so how do we operate? First, let's drag the material in a panoramic container with the mouse to ensure that our table lamp is currently located in the center of the town such a position. Then we select our panoramic scene, where we can add a series of annotations. For example, there is a panoramic text, which allows us to make an annotation effect. Then we can click here to see that a text of it appears almost in the center of our field of vision, so we first let it appear in such a position, and then we have an effect of fine-tuning. Even you can remove a value and its decimal point here, but you don't need to go to surgery for such a position, because the surgery is very complex. You can go through what I just told you first. We adjust its perspective. For example, there is a lamp here. We also fix its perspective in the middle, and then we add a series of materials. We can also see that it basically appears nearby. Then, in the vicinity, we can first perform an operation of rounding it, and then we can make some detailed modifications to some of its values, so that we can easily set the whole dot. Then we can adjust some coordinates here. For example, let him move to the left at the previous point. When we click here, we will let him enter the next scene. In order to have a second scene, let's add another panoramic scene too under the panoramic container. Similarly, upload our material for him. Here, our material can directly upload our second panoramic picture. This is our second panoramic picture. Then what is our event here? What do we do when it's clicked? Do you want to jump to panoramic scene 2? When we did the page before, we found out who sent out the page jump when we executed it. It was sent out by the parent front end of the page. Who should send out the jump when we want to switch to the second scene? Because I believe my smart classmates have already thought that such a panoramic scene, its abdominal muscle is our panoramic container to send out, so through the panoramic container to perform a scene switching function, and then our scene here is selected, and our scene 2 is OK. So when we click on it, we can switch to scene 2, and then we can preview an effect here. You can see that there is a chandelier here, a desk lamp here, and a finger here. When I click the finger, it switches to the second scene. Let's go back to the previous scene. It seems a little bad. You see, I clearly posted a picture sequence. Why does it seem that it won't move, just like a picture? Let's observe the effect of. Usually, if we are not in the panoramic scene, what is the problem? It is because we did not click on its automatic play, but we found that there is no automatic play such a property in its property, so how do we make it play? It's easy, isn't it? What event can we let him play through event? We add an event here. In his event, the student with eyes may have found that it has an event called load complete. Why we didn't give him an automatic play? It is because after the load is completed, you can let him play again. So when such a picture sequence is loaded, we let it perform an action, that is, let it play an effect by itself. Let's take a look at it again. You have selected it for me. We change such a total market to 0.5 seconds, let it play faster, and then let's take a look at the preview again, cut it over, and now it will play automatically. Then when we click it, it will automatically help us jump to a new scene, so that we can basically finish an effect of a panoramic container. Then let's take a look at some special effects of the panoramic container. The first special effect is to open an effect of our asteroid entering the field. What kind of special effects will there be when such an effect is opened? Let's open it here for you to see. Select our panoramic container. First, there is an asteroid opening here. We check it. Let's have a look. If we check it, we can also see that it rotates in. In this way, it is our small airport. That is to say, if you like it or not, you can turn it off, and then the second gyroscope control, that is to say, we can check such a series of effects when our mobile phone is shaking. Here, because I can't watch the demonstration on the computer, we can experience it after finishing such an application by ourselves. Then there is an effect called automatic rotation here. If we check such an automatic rotation, we can preview it. We can see that when our asteroid comes into play, if we don't do any operation, we can see that it will have an effect of slow rotation. If you want to have such a slow rotation effect, you can check such an automatic rotation property, including the rotation of one view angle, acceleration, rotation speed, and how long it does not operate before it starts to rotate. You can make a series of settings. Of course, I don't like this very much. I feel a little dizzy, so generally speaking, I don't drive this. Then finally, there is another property, our print canvas. When this option is checked, we can print the canvas through the panorama container. This action will take effect, but it will increase a series of rendering consumption. As for what is a printing canvas, we will introduce it to you in the next course, so when you finish learning our printing canvas, if you need to print the material of such a panoramic container, you can come back here to experience an operation of our printing canvas. That's all the content of this section. Thank you for watching.